Yes, I'll just start talking. We'll give you an introduction to the different types of errors, how you build a better experience using the error info object. We'll talk about collectible errors. We'll touch upon guidelines and best practices, and maybe also talk a little about where we want to take this, things that haven't been implemented yet. So, I like to think of errors a bit like a crime scene. Like, where did the crime take place? What weapon was used? And who is the villain? Now, this might seem a little odd, but let's take some of the examples here. So, where? Now, of course, the developer speak for that would be, well, that's the stack trace, but you can also think of where as, well, what was the surroundings in that? Was it during usage of the client? Was it part of an OData call? Was it a job queue job, etc.? So that's the where part. And then we have the harder one about, well, what weapon was used for this hideous crime of raising this error? Was it an error in the data entry? Was it a data error that was in the database already, which could be in the current record, on another record, what you got returned from a query? Or it can be something a little less within your control, the permission setup, how the external system is set up. It can just be a plain coding error. And then there's also the very nice group, which is just called bad luck. And then you have, so who's the villain? Now, the villain is usually also the one who can fix it. So this actually makes a bit of difference. So it can be the current user, it can be a privileged user with permissions, it can be the developer, it can never be Microsoft. Oh, it can actually be Microsoft. Or maybe you just need some divine intervention to actually solve this. So where are we taking this? Well, if you take a look at some of these examples of errors, the top one where the user has typed an invalid date, well, it's quite clear who's the villain. It's the user himself, and it's quite easy to fix. You just type something correctly. And then you have a group of data-dependent errors. And then all the way at the bottom, you start having the more fluffy one. Another user has modified the record. I guess that's in the bad luck category. And the synchronization, you can argue whether that is bad luck or just poor setup. But in this presentation, we are mainly going to focus on where the interactive usage of the product, and the weapon, where the weapon is basically the business central data, where that is the main cause for errors, and then also where the current user can actually fix the problem in Business Central, so we want to help them moving forward. And in order to do that, we're talking about actionable errors, where it's important that users can recognize the error, they understand what went wrong, and then they can either repair or report the error.
So I started working 3 years back, and I used to see a message like this while reproducing a scenario. And do you know what this error could mean? Like, it says there are no warehouse receipt lines created, but why?
Yeah, the why is hard. I think it's quite clear what went wrong. But
yeah, but as a user, I had no clue. But now what we have done is we are using these actionable errors to add more details to the error messages. In this case, we tell the user, okay, what might have caused this error? In this case, maybe I've already created the warehouse shipment lines. That's why I cannot create more. And you also have the action to directly navigate to the page. And that helps me as an end user to investigate and understand what went wrong. So we have another example. In this case, I'm doing a field validation. I'm trying to update a quantity in the sales line, but I'm getting an error message that I cannot change it. Reason being, there's a purchase order linked to it. And the good part here is, even though it's a field validation, I still get that actionable error or the navigation action, which I can directly go into the purchase order. And if the same validation was triggered from an action, we would get a dialog message instead. So the web client is doing the magic to display the same error in different formats, depending on the context. So Agnieszka, can you tell us how we can build such experiences in Business Central?
Yes, of course. So now let's look at the implementation details. So first of all, error info object. It is an object that we have quite recently, relatively recently, added to the AL language. And you can think of it as a recipe for building an error dialog. So it is a structure for grouping information about an error. You can use error info to implement different error handling frameworks that we have in Business Central. So for example, actionable errors or collectible errors, both of which we are going to cover in this session. So first of all, let's take a look at what are the advantages of using the objects instead of passing a very long list of parameters to a method. So first of all, you can select what you want to fill in. So all the properties have default values. You can only set one. You can set all of them. You don't have to spend more time on filling all of the details one by one. It also gives you more flexibility, so you can set them in any order you want. You don't have to get into the hell of figuring out what is the fifth parameter in the long method. What does this one mean? And also, that's a good one, Microsoft additions are not going to breaking changes. So we can add new properties wherever we want, and your code won't be broken by that. So this is an API. These are the methods, the instance methods for error info object. But no worries, we're not going to dissect this slide line by line. We don't want to sit here forever. So let's just jump directly to the highlights. We can see a very nice error dialog here that allows the user to reopen a document directly from an error dialog, right? So let's break it down. Title. Error info allows the developer to set the descriptive title for a dialog. And then this nice button here in the right corner that says reopen document. That is an action. The add action method allows you as a developer to attach specific custom actions to given error dialogs. So users, after clicking the action, can follow the link and then, for example, fix the problem and then come back to the original page. So we can think of it as a kind of guided error resolution. So now let's see how does this translate into code. By the way, this is a sample code. It's not a production code. It's just for the demonstration purposes so that we do understand how to implement similar error dialogues. Let's start with the event subscriber because that's where the code execution will start. This one is very simple. It just verifies if the sales header status is open. If it's not, then it means that we are in an error state, right? So now let's configure the error info object. We are setting the message. We are setting the title. That's obvious. And then this one is nice. We are setting the system ID. And system ID can be accessed afterwards in the action implementation.
Can I just add something here?
Yes.
There's also the ability to set the record ID. System ID is the way to go. It's easier for us to handle than the record ID.
Yes, so now, after setting the system ID, we are finally adding an action. You can see, yes, the tooltip that will appear on the bottom of the action, the code unit, and then the method. This is the action implementation, right? You need to make sure that the action exists because you are referencing it by name. And also, if you notice, this one takes error info as a parameter. So this is a contract between the action API and the error info object. So that one is implemented, so we can go inside and take a look at what is it doing. It just takes sales header by the system ID that we have provided before in the error info object, and then the perform manual reopen method is invoked, right? Another example. This one actually has two actions. First one is a regular action, another one is a navigation action. Let's see what are the differences here. Here what's interesting is that we use custom dimensions. So custom dimensions are not strongly tied, just back of properties. So if you have any additional logic here, you can fill in the custom dimensions and then access them inside the action procedure itself. Yes, so this is the action. We can see custom dimensions are referenced inside. Here, this one. So this is a navigation action. As you can already see, it's easier to implement than the add action, right? Because you just need to set the page number and call add navigation action. So you don't need a whole new procedure to be declared. You're just going to open the page with the number that you have specified. So just quickly to compare, action needs a method, navigation action doesn't need a method. One is used for fixed scenarios, so the user wants to maybe go there and there's some additional logic required. Navigation action is just like show me the page. And then add action supports custom dimensions. Okay, so let's move to tooltips. Tooltips are short, informative texts that appear when users hover over different elements of the interface. And in Business Central, this can be either an action, a field, or fact box, or an activity button. And these texts provide quick explanations about the features without overwhelming with details, right? So they give you inside info on how things work without making you read the whole manual. Here we have a nice example of a tooltip. It says, shows open warehouse shipment lines already created for this document, right? So as you can notice, it's not crowding the user interface. User can hover over it to get more information, but there is no way we could have put all this text on a button, right? So that's why tooltips are very, very useful. And how can you attach them to the action? Very easy, error info object, add action method. The last text parameter, this is what is going to be a tooltip on action. And the same goes for navigation action. So now, Jens, will you talk about?
Yeah, I want to take the opportunity now that we've mentioned the word tooltip to mention that we have added the ability to add tooltips on table fields rather than on page controls. It's not strictly related to error info, but if you start adding tooltips to fields instead, then it allows us to then start harvesting that when we know that the weapon that was used to commit the crime was a certain field. Now, actually, we can start building logic that also takes advantage of that tooltip. So in general, remember, you can now specify it also on tables.
So just to add, it's not just this. So with all the keynote presentation, what we heard about Copilot, even the chat pane in the Copilot would rely on these tooltips to get some more information. So that's really a good idea to add good tooltips, good caption, so that we can make the users and also the Copilot understand what's happening.
So you can make AI even smarter. Detailed message, right? So here we are shifting away from the errors that the users can fix themselves and move a bit towards the errors that require a support or an engineer intervention, right? So detailed message will be mostly helpful in these scenarios. It is not shown to the end users, but it's tucked away in the copy details section of the error dialog. When the users copy the copy error details, then apart from the detailed message, the text will be enhanced with the session IDs, timestamps, and all the useful support info. We have also added share in Teams and share in Outlook. That's also handy. And you are not required to set the detailed message. The default will be empty, right? But your future self will thank you if you do, trust me, because it will come back at you and you need to troubleshoot the error and you need to figure out what has happened. So think of it as like, what technical information will I need in case this error happens and I get a support case or a customer case. But maybe don't be too verbose, don't write a novel there, unless you like reading novels attached to support cases.
You can have AI generate a novel for you and put it into the tooltip.
That's even
or
best.
In the
and then make
message.
AI read and abstract everything. So that's a nice example of where can you get the details, right? The technical details. So here, that's the HTTP client failure, and we are getting the last error text out of it, and we are feeding this, populating this, the detailed message with that error text. So here is how it will look like. That's a nice screenshot. We are having trouble contacting Shopify. Can you please try again after some time? So we are clicking on share details, copy error details. This is what will appear in the clipboard. Yes, the error message, we can see that. Detail error. The SSL connection could not be established, remote certificate, right? That's a perfect example of a message you don't want to display to the end user. Because imagine an accountant seeing this, they might think that their computer suddenly switched to a foreign language, right? And like some really bad things happened. So this is a perfect candidate for a detailed message. Then further, internal session IDs, timestamps, right? Can you spot the Z, UTC? Very important. So it's, you know, when you have the customer case and it says, yesterday, 5 p.m., something bad happened. So now the question is, what is yesterday? What is even today, right? Which time zone? Because otherwise you end up investigating with your local Antwerp time, and then the customer is sitting in Japan, right? So that problem solved, you have the timestamp with UTC in the clipboard. Yes, AL call stack, useful for AL developers, custom dimensions. Yes, so we have made it even more smooth to encourage the users to send that information to support. So you can click on generate email, the new email with the title will be generated for you. And it's very, very good to have that in a text. I think we are a very technical crowd here, right? So raise your hand if you had to at least, even once in your lifetime, transfer the value of a GUID from a screenshot to a text. Waste of time, right? So yes, this is in a text format. Just copy, paste, send it. Yes, this is an example of a detailed message coming from the validation errors, right? The inline validation errors. Okay. Test field improvements. So a while ago, we have looked at our telemetry data coming from across all of the production clusters that we have, and we're trying to figure out what were the most common errors that are bothering the users. And it turned out that test field errors were quite a prominent group there, right? So we figured that we might implement a platform support to make the test field actionable. So this is the platform logic. That's how platform figures out what page to open when the user gets a test field error. So what action to actually attach there.
May I add a comment here?
Yes?
You could also interpret this as Microsoft being lazy, because we probably have thousands of usages of test fields, so if we can fix it in one place, we don't need to go and change 2,000 places in the base app.
Yes, so that's the logic here. If the page can be found using drill down page ID and card page ID from the record. If that is found, then let's verify the read and execute permissions on a page, right? Why is that? So imagine that we put a very nice action link on an error dialog, user clicks it, boom, permission error, right? That's not the best user experience. That's not what we want to display. So this condition needs to be met. Destination data needs to be different from the current record, and also destination page needs to be different from the current page, right? Because sometimes test field errors need to be fixed on the same page, just on a different field, right? So if we have automatically added a link to open the same page on top of the original one, that's also a nice experience, right? So if all of these conditions are met, then we are adding the link to the test field error. Yeah, that's great. So let's see a demo of that. So the scenario here is that we are in the general ledger setup. We want to set the additional reporting currency to Australian dollars, right? Yes. Reporting, let's find additional reporting, Australian dollars. We need to fill the details. Let's choose the first one from the list. Okay. Error, right? Test field error. The show currency card, that's the navigation action that the platform has added with no AL code required here, right? And yeah, let's see how it will work. This one says actually residual gains account must have a value in Australian dollars, right? So let's see what happens if we click the currency card. Yes, we have Australian dollars here, right? Let's find the field that was actually empty. Let's set this up to the first value from the list. Let's go back. Let's see. Yes, we are filling the details again. Let's retry. Okay, another one, a different one. Residual losses account, right? still on Australian dollars. Both of them are required. So let's try to navigate there. So pay attention to the fact that this is Australian dollars, right? Because the user wanted to set Australian dollars, not euros, right? So this is filtered already to the correct record, correct currency. Let's retry, and let's finally hope that this will resolve all the issues. Perfect, right? Error fixed. So this was quite smooth. The user had to only follow the links, right? And they were able to resolve the issue without getting back and forth, because without the link, they would need to open the tab, find currencies, find the page, find Australian dollars, fill everything up, right? This is smooth. This is going directly from the error message. Great. Prangshuman, will you now talk about collectible errors?
It's actually Jens. Can you add some details about the collectible errors before I go into
Collectible errors is actually a pretty old feature. We did it in 2021, I think. It allows you to continue execution while you collect the errors, so you can postpone showing it and then show all of them together. Now, some of the design principles is what I just mentioned, and also you can reuse error raising code, so you don't need to do something special when you want to collect it. The existing error code should not change behavior, so if you're not collecting the errors, then it'll still error out as you normally would. And then it was definitely a goal to make sure that the if code unit runs worked as it used to and avoid accidental commits. But let's take a look at how we build it in the product.
Yeah, so imagine I'm an accountant. I'm doing my day-to-day job. I would like to post some lines, general lines or general journal lines to pay my vendors. I have 3 lines here, and let's try to post the lines and see what happens. Oh no, there's an error. So this time, the error is, something to do with dimensions, and I need to change the dimension from intercompany for the business group to home. Okay, let's see how we can do that. So in the context, I can see it's on the first line of the general journal line. So I can go there, go to the dimension, click on it, and edit the dimension set entry and change the business group here to home. Once I do that, let's try to post it again and see if it works. No, there's another error this time. This time it's about the sales campaign which I'm using is wrong. Yeah, right now it's not winter, so I need to go and delete this. So let's do that for the first line as we did previously. So I've just deleted the line. Let's try again. Come on, there's another error after error, like on all the lines, one by one. And this is what I am in the situation, and probably our users are frustrated as well, having to do this. Let's see how it is done today, or how it was before, sorry. So it is done today for the posting routine. So what happens in the posting routine is we check the dimensions, and when we do the check, we use error message management to log the errors. In this case, the errors are logged into the error message record, and the code execution stops as soon as the error is encountered. And we just show the errors as we encounter that. So can we do something better by using collectible errors? So let's start by adding a property on the check or attribute, which is called error behavior, and we can set it to collect. And then let's see what happens inside the check line routine. So on run of the code unit, we have check dimensions. Inside that, when we check the dimension, we need to just make sure if there is an error, we need to set the property on the error info to collectible as true. Once we do that, what platform will do is every time it encounters the error, rather than throwing it right away, it will keep collecting it in the background. And we can do the same thing with test field on the record and the field error by passing the error info object to those procedures. So if we just rely on this, there would be a default error message thrown by the platform, which will say, okay, there were multiple errors encountered, and it will just show the first one. And you can find rest of the details in the copy error details. Not a very nice experience. What if we would like to change this and handle this in our regular error message page?
Yeah, and this is what you would see if you didn't really handle the error. So when you came out of the error behavior collect, then it would end up showing this rather ugly thing, but that's back to we still want it to error at the end unless you've done something, right? To keep the existing code running. And it's basically just a handshake. You set the error info to be collectible, and then when that is being run inside a scope where you do collect, then we actually start collecting them and allow you to continue.
Exactly. So here we'll try to handle this in the custom UI, in this case, the beloved error message page, which our customers are used to. Everything remains the same, except now when we are running the procedure, whenever we run, let's say we can use the code unit.run, and if there is an error, if it's not successful, we can use this collect errors procedure. And within that, what we are doing is we are calling the has collected error function from the platform, which tells us there were some errors inside the code unit. And what we can do is we can do get collected errors, which will give us the list of all the error info objects. We can iterate through them. And in this case, we are pushing them into the temporary error message record. So another thing is we need to make sure that we clear the collected error message. Otherwise, the platform will give you that default error dialog. We want to avoid that. So we can do that by using this clear collected errors, or we can set the Boolean property true in the get collected errors, which will clear the error messages. And just to show that we can then take this temporary record where we collected all the errors, pass it down to the error message page, and it will all work. And we will get the error message. So let's see how it is implemented in a place. So we have a feature called check the lines or check the data while you're working. So it happens in the background. So you can enable that feature from the general ledger setup. So on the right, you can see there's a fact box now, where while working on the general journal lines, I can see the list of errors. So there are 6 errors right now. So if we drill down, you will see all the collected message at once in one place in the error message page. However, we have done something better. So we have released an extension called error messages with recommendation. What we have done is we have improved the user experience here by extending the page. So here you have a little bit cleaner interface. And user can click on the error message to reproduce the same beautiful error dialog with the title, description, and they can also use the same functionality to share the details with the support team. And after that, on the right, we have moved all the details about the error message to a fact box. So even here, you have the context where you can see that the error was on the first line. And we have added something called subcontext, or the error location, which is, in this case, it was dimension set entry, because that's where the actual error happened. So user can directly drill down there and also fix the error by themselves. This is all about understanding the error, so we also need the source. In this case, the default dimensions of the vendor is governing the rules of the dimensions. So user can go there and look at the rules, and they can understand the error much better in this using this extension. What if we can do something even better? Like now, there's a column called recommended action. A user can go there, and once they have understood the error and how to deal with it, they can accept the fix, what we provide. So in this case, we need to change the dimension. So it gives a nice confirmation dialog which says, you need to set the dimension to a certain value. We can accept that message. And once it's done, we get a nice confirmation or acknowledgement message that, yeah, it has been changed. And on the background, you can see the status has changed to fixed. How about we select all of them together and accept the recommended action? And this time, we get a confirmation message saying, OK, 5 out of 6 would be fixed, because it already knows that 1 has been fixed. So we can accept this, and voila. So we are able to fix all of them, and I'm happy as an accountant. I can go ahead and do my posting. Let's see what happens, or what happened in the background, and how did we implement this. So in the error message table, in the extension, we have extended the table error message record with few fields, especially the title, the recommended action caption, the message status, and the subcontext-related stuff. We have an interface implementation in enum, which governs, like for this particular error message, what is the fix required. Let's look into the interface. So the interface you would have to implement is the error message fix, which contains 3 procedures. One of them is the set error message properties, where you can set all the properties like title, caption, and the subcontext. And the next is the onFix error. This is the logic for the fix, and you will have the access to the error message, which should contain all the information you need when you're trying to fix the error in a different transaction. And on success message is the acknowledgement you get after fixing the error message. So this is all done on top of error message management. So if you are using error message management to log the errors, this is what you should use. And of course, don't forget to extend the enum, because that's what would be used for. So that's how we would identify which error fix you need would be applied to the error message. So let's look at the base app code in the error message management module. So we have added a procedure called add subcontext to the last error message. In this, we just get the last error message and trigger an event, because we want to read that information in an extension, and the tag can be used to identify uniquely which error message are you talking about. And in this subscriber, so we can skip the logic if the tag is not, so if the error does not belong to this fix, so you can identify it using tag. And then you can validate all the extended fields, so in this case, the subcontext and the title and all the other properties. So once you do that, you should be able to provide a better experience. So right now, we are not going into the details about how you write the fix, but it should be very similar to the normal add action fixes you would add. And you should be able to get more details about the extension and how to write the error fix and what methods to implement in the GitHub link here. And
so, Prangshuman, it seems that you have just described two different approaches to error handling, right? So which one would you recommend using?
Yeah, that's a nice catch. So right now, the issue is we don't have the support to get the actions from the error info object. So if you are using error info object, you can continue doing that. But if you are used to using the error message management module to log your errors, because that was the old way to collect the errors in an error message record, so you have to use this intermediate solution. But eventually, when we have the access to the properties, I'm looking at you. So in that sense, we should be able to give the same experience. We should be able to collect the errors, because when we show the error messages in the error message page from the error message management module, we collect all the error infos. We also collect these and combine them and show it to the user. But at this point, we will lose the information about the add actions from the error info object, but hopefully soon in the product. Yeah, that's the limitation I was talking about. And this should take our user experience from here to here. And so Jens, I'll hand it over to you to share some guidelines and best practices.
Yes, and I'll take the easy route out and point to documentation, where there is actually a section about actionable errors, collecting errors, etc. So yes, you could actually just go and read the documentation, but there are a few things that we would like to highlight. First of all, it's time to move away from just giving one piece of text when an error happens. So replace your error text with error info, because it allows you to build a much richer experience for the user. For the error messages, remember it should be possible to recognize the error. That's the title part. The body content, well, that is why, if it's relevant, and then how to fix it if it's something you can either describe in words. Even better, if you can add an action that allows you to fix it, then add an action with clear description, and use the detailed message for technical information for advanced users that can help them troubleshoot the issue. In the documentation, the navigate and other actions, they're called fix it and show it actions. And then also just consider in general to make most errors collectible, but now you play nicely if somebody wants to collect all the errors in case you run it inside an error behavior collect scope. So these were just some of the guidelines. You can see more of them in the documentation. Now, troubleshooting.
Yes, so, hopefully, if you all use error info objects and make your error dialogues actionable, then No troubleshooting, no customer support cases. All the users will be able to solve their problems by themselves. But before that actually becomes a reality, you still need to troubleshoot sometimes, right? So here is the help and support page. It's very nice. Users can get information on what is the version of the application, what is the version of the platform that they are using. They can go and see the last known error, inspect pages and data. They can also turn on additional logging, which is useful sometimes. And then they can navigate to the latest error. This is that page. You can see the error code, the error text, the call stack. This is mostly relevant for AL devs. Then,
Can I just add a comment?
yes,
So if you have a user that can actually reproduce the problem, get them to do the detailed logging. You'll get every single SQL call. You'll get all the verbose telemetry. And of course, you've set up telemetry so that you can actually see it. Then have them copy the details, because now you have the session ID. You plug that into your Custo query, and now you have basically everything the system could collect currently.
fair point. Next one. You can also take a look at page 709, which is error message register. This one contains errors coming from posting and job queue execution. Also useful if your users are having some troubles. Telemetry. So yes, hopefully you have telemetry set up in all your production tenants. All telemetry is documented, so and it also contains signals for error information. So all the errors that the users see, you will be able to access them afterwards in the App Insights account. It's also pretty nicely documented, so you can go there afterwards, even if you don't know what a given signal means. Go there, verify, and troubleshoot the problems.
Yes. Just a few slides on where we're taking this. First of all, we're on a growing product. And as it grows, actually the support needs get larger. But generally, customers will get happier if they can solve the problems themselves. So there is also a bit of self-help here that we get to do fewer support tickets if we actually give a good error handling. We can also see that textual information get more and more valuable, because with AI, we have the ability to actually use the text more. So provide more text around the errors, provide more context. And also, we see more and more needs for automation. You can set up alerts through telemetry so that you automatically restart a server if a certain error happens, etc. Now, if you would take more the sort of tactical view, so what do we expect to add to this? Well, everything will basically revolve around the error info object, because that one, the moment we have the source of the error or the weapon used, then we can start navigating to it. If we have tooltips about it, we can do a lot of things, and we will add all of that capability to the error info object, improving the default handling, and we're also going to at some point look at the bulk handling, so you get more standard components for these collectible errors, etc. And at some point we might even get a function pointer so that you don't need to remember that it needs to have a certain method signature. But that's a bit further out into the future. And with this, we are about time to do some questions. Well, of course, when you get the slides, it's always nice to know the general Business Central resources. So I want to thank you for your time, and then we'll open it up for questions.
Yeah.
Did you find one there?
Yes. Need the T-shirt?
T-shirt is down there.
So when you say function pointer, you mean we might be able to someday pass the method reference as a strongly typed thing to the add action, similar to event subscribers?
So that would be lovely. I don't think it's happening tomorrow or anytime soon.
But maybe.
But yes, that would be awesome, right?
Yeah.
Stefan is here. You can talk with him.
Implement fix. So knowing end users, if you give that to them, they're just going to hit it and say fix. And there are going to be cases where it's not actually proper. Could you log to change log, at least that you've inserted or modified, so if I go in as a partner and I need to reverse it, I can see who did it? Because if you go back to the accountant and say, hey, you changed this, they're going to say, no, I didn't.
So Yes, so there's logging automatically built in some ways. You have the audit fields, which will actually show that you actually did change it. I will have to check exactly what we log in telemetry for when the user actually invokes the error actions, because we should be logging that as well. But off the top of my head, I cannot remember exactly what we log. But that's basically what you want to do. You have the audit fields and you have telemetry to actually provide evidence of what really happened.
Which I'm sure is happening on the application insight side. It's just more on the application side itself from the end user perspective.
Yeah, maybe. Good input. We'll consider if there are some things we can do better there.
So, but currently, in case of error message register, if something has been committed to the error message record and you fix it there, you should be able to see who made the changes last. But yeah, we need something more but robust to track like who did some changes.
Yeah, I saw that you mentioned that you had some rules for when, for example, you mentioned the test field. There were some rules for when you would activate this. I didn't maybe quite get it, but I just know that we use the test field a lot, also in the base code for kind of assertions. So in some cases, for example, the journal line that you kind of make test field on, it doesn't really exist and so on. How do you handle that?
So then we won't add an action. If we can't find, for example, if not all the conditions from the slide that I showed you are met, we just don't add an action. And it's up for the developer to actually specify what should be the page, like what should be the one to be opened.
Okay,
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and so it's basically if we can uniquely define a navigation to the crime scene, we allow you to get there. We might later add the ability actually to revert to the current page with if it was on that page and then have that field highlighted. That has not been built yet.
It's a little bit of a pity that you have to define actions twice, first on the error info and then when it's collectible. But couldn't a workaround be that if we could store the error info in a dictionary and connect it to the temporary to the temporary error record, then we on page we could actually get the original error info if we are running it straight away.
Yes, so let's talk afterwards just to understand the details, because we do know that there are some information we could collect, well, you could say a little better so that you have them readily available later. But I'm not sure I just grasped exactly what the request was, and maybe we should just take that offline.
Yep.
Sorry about that. And one last. We're up there. I was just about to make a very long throw, a Hail Mary.
Hi all. Will the error action dialog functionality run in modal way? And if so, concerning all other pages that the user will run on custom action, will also they run in modal mode or not?
In general, they run modally, yes. And the way you would set up the standard UI is actually you show it after the transaction has been rolled back. So you're not keeping the transaction open, if that's your concern. But yes, they will be shown modally, but you're not holding locks while you're showing the modal dialog, because this is after the transaction rollback. So you go back and fix the error, and then you do what you do again.
Yes, that was, my question was tricky because, I mean, the user will open pages. And
Yeah.
then
Yeah, the user will open pages, and then the user would have to go back and, for instance, do the action again.
Yeah.
It is not an interruption of a flow, because that would give us severe locking problems. Thank you. We will stay around. We will allow people to leave. We're down here. Please come and ask questions. We love it to get feedback on the features and where we should take this next. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.